Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Yum Brands and LRQA Supporting Suppliers on the Road to GFSI Certification. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. You may have joined the presentation listening using your computer speaker system by default. If you'd prefer to join over the telephone, just select phone in the audio pane and the dial-in information will be displayed. You'll have the opportunity to submit text questions to the presenters by typing your questions into the questions pane of your control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation. We will address them at the end. Our panel today includes Samuel Barrett, Global Food Safety QA Manager, Yum Brands, Summer Conway, Global Account Manager at LRQA, and Mark Morales, Corporate Accounts Director, Americas at LRQA. I'm now going to turn it over to Mark Morales. Mark, take it away.
Thank you. Today we're going to discuss, in partnership with Yum Brands, how LRQA can be your partner for a safer, more secure, and sustainable future. LRQA is committed to supporting the food industry. Since 1985, we've been a leader in providing robust professional independent audits with an ability to support your operations at a global scale and a dedicated team of commercial and technical experts. Our strong internal governance ensures LRQA's clients receive the highest quality audits, and also we ensure that we provide added value. LRQA is a leader throughout the food chain. With 100% full supply chain coverage, we are a top 5 provider of major GFSI audit programs with over 30 years food sector experience. We deliver over 50,000 audits annually and are in over 160 countries with over 500 food specialists assisting and supporting from a technical perspective. As you can see, LRQA has the expertise, experience, and credentials to ensure Yum Brand suppliers' risks are being managed while supporting you all on your road to GFSI certification. Now, today we're covering food safety. However, LRQA delivers solutions that span your entire supply chain. As it's related to the food industry, of course, we cover food safety audits, brand standard audits, retailer standard audits, and GFSI standards, BRC, GS, FSSC 22000, IFS, and SQF. Additionally, we also do ISO 22000, HACCP, and provide training to prepare you for these certifications. Beyond food safety, we also provide services in traceability, sustainability, quality, safety, and operational excellence, as well as brand assurance. You can see them here listed on the screen, and you will get a copy of this presentation. Any questions, please do reach out to us. From a food safety perspective, LRQA provides services to help ensure your food is safe for consumption, protecting your consumers and brand from harm. This helps you to meet global standards and gain access to markets, detect any issues and eliminate threats before they occur, protect your consumers, meet or exceed best practices, giving you a competitive advantage in the industry. And now I'll pass over to Samuel to discuss Yum Supplier Program evolution as well as in GFSI certification. Samuel.
Great, thanks, Mark. And so, hi, everyone. First of all, let me just apologize real quick for not having a camera today. I think some technical difficulties my side, but hopefully you can all hear me well. So my name's Sam Barrett. I'm with the Yum Global Food Safety team, and I am responsible for our supplier programs. And I just want to say I'm really grateful to LRQA for organizing today's webinar to look at the supplier certification journey. This is going to be a really great opportunity just to understand a little bit more about the nuances of the schemes and the direction that Yum are heading in and how LRQA can best support all of our suppliers around the world on that journey. So as part of that, the team have asked me to join you all today just to talk a little bit about our strategic direction, the evolution that Yum are making on our supplier programs and our expectations of our suppliers around the world, and just bring to life a little bit why we're doing that. What are some of the benefits that actually the industry as a whole can expect as a result of our direction here? But before I do that, I always think it's quite useful to perhaps look at where we're coming from to give some context as to why we're going where we're going. And the slide you've got in front of you shows you the Yum's current approach to supplier management. And really you can see it's built up out of 4 key areas. First, we conduct a supplier risk assessment that makes sure that our requirements are proportionate based on the risk of the ingredient that the supplier is providing to us. And then based on that, we have a number of different requirements. Today, Yum operates a second-party food safety audit program, which looks at a supplier's capability as it relates to Yum requirements and how Yum expects product to be manufactured. We have broad, fairly consistent acceptance of accredited third-party certification. So today, we already have pretty broad acceptance of GFSI and the different scheme audits that exist out there. And then all of that is overlaid with some category minimum standards. So where we think about specific risk areas or products that we utilize that are higher risk than others, for example, ready to eat materials, we also have some additional requirements that we overlay. And right now we operate a compliance model where all of our suppliers are required to maintain a level of certification, whether to our own program or to a third-party program, and we monitor that as a business and use that to ensure we're meeting our own goals and priorities as it relates to food safety management. But actually, when you look at where we're coming from, there's a real opportunity for us to simplify our approach, to make sure that we are reducing complexity and supporting not only our own teams, but also our suppliers around the world in making sure that we manage food safety risk where risk is highest and that our action to manage risk is proportionate. And where we can, we want to try and partner with industry bodies and industry groups to try and make it as easy as possible for suppliers to understand and meet our requirements so that ultimately we can partner together to deliver great, safe food for all of our customers and brands around the world. And that really brings us into our supplier program strategy. And we have announced over the past year the move away from our own second-party food safety audits and replacing those with a requirement to be certified against one of the GFSI benchmark programs. Now, I've included the 4 major schemes that we typically expect to see around the world, but I know that later in the presentation we'll include some of the other schemes that are also out there. But we are moving away from our second-party food safety program, and we are going to be moving our existing supply base and future supply base into third-party accredited certification. This is going to really give a consistent foundation for food safety across our entire global suppliers. It means that we have the same requirements in place for both existing suppliers that supply us as a business today, but also new suppliers who want to enter the Yum supply chain and start supplying our businesses around the world. And this really allows us all to benefit from those global third-party programs, the global development of these programs, and making sure that and leveraging the benefits of the development of those programs that will happen around the world, or suddenly Yum are able to make the most of those and ultimately ensure that we remain aligned with the global food safety risk management programs that exist. So if we think about why we're doing that, really this is about reducing complexity. We ultimately want to ensure that risk and food safety are incredibly well controlled, but we want to do that in a way that removes unnecessary complexity, because complexity ultimately increases risk. The more different requirements that we have, the more nuances and different ways of approaching food manufacturing that we require, ultimately means that we put a lot of risk into our supply base by forcing suppliers to often hold multiple different approaches to managing product depending on the customer they're supplying for. This ultimately drives a huge amount of effort and cost into our supply base, because we're having to ensure that the Yum food safety program is monitored, as well as all other customer programs, as well as most likely third-party programs that suppliers are also certified to. This really pulls resource away from truly managing risk and becomes a focus on making sure that we're compliant to a standard, as opposed to making sure that our food safety management system adequately controls risk and that food is produced safely. And ultimately, this takes time. It's time both for our teams in managing our program and supporting suppliers on that journey, but also time for our supply base as they start to try and understand Yum's approach to food safety management and meeting the Yum requirements of our audit program. And so ultimately, by partnering with third-party schemes, we hope to leverage their programs, leverage their food safety management requirements as it relates to the manufacturing of food, and allow our suppliers to focus there to hopefully support not only Yum as a business, but also all of their other clients, and ultimately make sure that food safety is controlled in the right way. Yum will also be leveraging our relationship with the different scheme owners and GFSI, and we'll be working to ensure those programs meet both our needs today and our needs of the future, hopefully having a halo impact on the food industry globally as a whole. And when we think about what this means for us, there are obviously a vast number of benefits to Yum and our brands and business units around the world when we think about supplier management. The first is this is going to significantly accelerate our ability to onboard suppliers. Where GFSI and the audit programs that are benchmarked to it are quite ubiquitous in a lot of different places around the world, this enables Yum and our brands to tap into supply chains around the world that may already be certified without having to move a supplier through the Yum food safety program and have them certified to the Yum audit program in addition to certification they may already have. We get to make use and benefit from the integrity programs that exist, both within GFSI and within certification bodies like LRQA, and really challenge and make use of those teams in ensuring that the audit integrity is where it needs to be, and that we are adequately ensuring that food safety risk is well controlled. These programs are really well established and things that we can get the benefit of upfront and quickly. This enables us to enhance our crisis responsiveness, depending on different situations, whether it's supply chain challenges or food safety challenges around the world. This enables Yum and our brands to flex as we need in our supply base to ensure that we're able to continue to supply great quality, safe food products to our customers in every market that we operate in. And finally, it enables us to collaborate with really strong certification partners. Businesses like LRQA, who have got really well-established programs globally and that are absolutely at the front of managing food safety in our supply base, we're able to partner with businesses like this in ways we've never been able to before and really leverage each other's scale as we think about improving food safety across a global supply base, benefiting us and the industry as a whole. And when we think about those, that's not my slide. When we think about the wider industry benefits as a whole, of course there are benefits to Yum with this, but actually there's a lot of benefits outside of that as well. So if we think about the developing regions, by Yum's moving away from our own program and partnering with the CBs and GFSI schemes, we're going to hopefully support developing suppliers in developing regions. We will be broadly accepting both the full GFSI certification programs as well as leveraging their development schemes to enable suppliers where it is needed to spend some time developing their food safety management systems up to a place where they are fully certified over time. This will ultimately help suppliers access global customer bases, so not only strengthening their food safety management systems for Yum, but also enabling them to tap into global customer bases who require GFSI certification, ultimately growing their businesses and improving the stability of their businesses, which is of course a benefit to Yum, but also a big benefit to our suppliers around the world as they grow. This will ultimately help our competitors and other businesses in the world who also look for GFSI certification. And the more suppliers that get certified, the better it is, the easier it is both for Yum and other businesses to tap into local supply chains as businesses grow in different parts of the world. And finally, and one of the huge benefits for our existing suppliers, but also future suppliers, is the opportunity to reduce the audit burden. So we've all been to suppliers, we all know the reality of multiple different customer audits and multiple different third-party audits, often taking the resource in the technical team away from food safety management and managing risk and all about managing audits. By removing the Yum requirement for an additional food safety audit and partnering with the schemes in the way we are, this is ultimately going to be one less Yum food safety audit that suppliers are going to be required to maintain, hopefully therefore reducing that audit burden for suppliers in general. So just in summary from me, Our direction, I think, is clear. GFSI certification is going to play a significant role in how Yum work with our suppliers around the world going forwards, and is ultimately going to be critical to our supply management requirements. This project is really about, right now, engaging our global supplier base on the change. We've been using our brands and business unit teams from around the world to ensure that we're talking to our suppliers where we have them locally and working on how we move from our own program to ultimately achieving third-party certification. And the key message from me, and you'll hear this from others today, is this process is going to take time. Certification is not an overnight thing. We're not going to be able to deliver this tomorrow. So we need to work now, start leveraging all of the resources and support that we're having from businesses like LRQA, who are here to help us deliver this, and ultimately work to ensure we're able to reach certification in line with the timelines that we are pushing forward with our brands around the world. So I think that finishes mine. And I think I'm now handing over to Summer Conway, who's the Technical Account Manager with LRQA, who's going to take us through a bit of a broader introduction to GFSI. Summer, over to you.
Thank you. So I'm here to kind of just talk to you guys about, understanding what GFSI is. I'm sure you've all heard the term GFSI, and talked about some of the GFSI Yum approved benchmark standards. Oh, hang on, sorry, too quick. So kind of what is GFSI? So they are a group that was established in February of 2000. GFSI stands for Global Food Safety Initiative. It's a coalition of action from the Consumer Goods Forum. So they bring together 45 different retailers and manufacturers and an extended food safety community to kind of oversee food safety standards for all the businesses and help provide access to safe food for people everywhere. So how does an organization like this do that? They do it through collaborative working with global food safety companies, regulators, and service providers to define best practices for food safety standards. They set an equivalence framework used for the purpose of benchmarking internal food safety standards. So they kind of say, this is what you guys have to achieve, and each of the standards put together their own way of working, how they're going to meet that standard. And they are providing GFSI recognition of international food safety standards that have been deemed to benchmark the framework. So basically this tells your customer, yep, you got the stamp from Global Food Safety from a certified provider, and your food should be safe. And GFSI is not a standard per se, but it's more of a guidance framework used to harmonize food safety standards and provide confidence that regardless of the way the standard is written, it is meeting the best practices for the control of the food safety risk. So why do you want to become certified to a GFSI benchmark standard? Around the world, it's estimated that 600 million people, so almost 1 in 10 people. So right now we have 152 people on here. 15 of you will fall ill after eating contaminated food each year. Increasing certification to the GFSI benchmark standard is being used by retailers and manufacturers as the basis to evaluate the suitability of suppliers and to demonstrate due diligence and respect to effective food safety management practices. So a lot of your big retailers aren't even accepting your product unless you're certified to a GFSI standard. GFSI benchmark standards provide an excellent guide for food suppliers for the development of your food safety plans and ensuring all essential elements for maintaining food safety have been considered and effectively implemented. When a food organization operations are certified, it demonstrates their commitment to meet this recognized global standard, which gives assurance to the customers and consumers that food has been produced, processed, handled in accordance with best practices controls for food safety risk. So what are some of the GFSI benchmark standards? There is a large number of them that exist. The ones we'll be focusing on today are IFS, BRC, FSSC, and SQF. Those are the ones that Samuel had called out in his presentation earlier, and those are the ones we're going to focus on as the big guys. Also, I just want to mention, I know some of the companies may be smaller, you're just starting to get into looking into setting up your food safety system or GFSI benchmarking. These standards also over on the right, you'll see listed are kind of stepping stone programs, developmental programs that will help you set yourself up for success in achieving your certification. So those are over here on the right. So the BRC Start, the FSSC Development, the IFS Global Markets Food, and then the SQF Fundamentals program. Those are not GFSI certified, as in you'll get a certificate, but these will be that benchmarking starting point for you to develop those programs you need. So how do I know which scheme to pick? Short answer, if you're a processor, food manufacturer, you can choose any of the applicable GFSI standards. However, some schemes are more common in different parts of the world. In the US, you usually see FSSC 22000 or SQF. In the UK, MEU, you see a lot of the FSSC 22000, BRC, and IFS. And then in Asia Pacific, usually you'll see the FSSC or the BRC. So the longer answer in that is each company is different. Each scheme is not a one size fits all. So it's important that you take time to kind of do your homework and choose the one that's going to be right for your, business size and your guys' practices and what works well with what you're producing. So if you want more help choosing a scheme, we're going to run through it after this, just some kind of the highlights of each of those schemes. Feel free to reach out to me. My email address is below, and I'll talk you through, what's the best decision for your guys' area and business practice. So I am here to support you, so feel free to reach out. All right, so a little bit about FSSC. So the scope of FSSC is based on food safety and regulatory legal requirements. In the current FSSC version 5.1, there's virtually no requirements for quality except for labeling. Quality will be incorporated in the new FSSC version 6. Just a little bit about the certification process. You'll have a stage 1 audit, you'll have a stage 2 audit, and then after you pass that stage 2 audit, you go into a 3-year surveillance cycle. So you'll have 2 surveillance visits and a certificate renewal. So your certificate is actually valid for 3 years, but you'll have an audit each year. The nonconformities that come out of that audit are rated as critical, major, and minor, and then just some information on how the closure of those nonconformities go. If you're issued a critical, full closure of that NC needs to occur within 14 days. With a major, full closure needs to be in 28 days. And then for a minor, a root cause corrective action plan needs to be approved within 28 days, and it's verified at the next audit. FSSC certification audits results in a certification or non-certification. There's no prescriptive scoring system, grading as you'll see with some of the other different levels. So it's either you're certified or you're not. Some of the kind of features of FSSC is it's applicable to any company, whatever the size, so it works for big and small, medium-sized companies. The standard provides a company the freedom to find your own methods for compliance with the requirements, and it's a less prescriptive standard, so it doesn't have the specifics that you would see in like IFS, BRC, or SQF. We do typically see this standard used for larger organizations, so they do have that flexibility to meet the standard how they prefer. FSSC is a management system, so it can easily be combined with other ISO-based management systems. Food sector categories can be delivered, so food, feed, transport and storage, catering, biochemical packaging. There's an FSSC database, so once your audit is complete, you pass the audit, your certificate information goes out onto a database that's searchable by your area and business name, and it'll tell you the scope of your audit and the validity, so it's made public. So any of your suppliers are like, are you GFSI certified? Please share us, your audit report or your certificate. They can also go out onto this website and publicly pull the information. So certification bodies delivering FSSC audits. So us, LRQA, we are certified to the ISO 17021-1 and ISO 22003 accredited. Also, something about the auditors. Auditor qualification process is done by the CB itself, so we train all of our auditors, but we need to follow the FSSC requirements based on GFSI and accreditation requirements. They kind of set out what the auditors have to be qualified to do and what that process entails, and then we make sure as a certification body that those records are there and the training has taken place. BRC, so the scope is focused more on product safety and quality. Certification process annually, it's a full audit is required. Audit frequency, it's dependent on how you score. So if you score an AA, A plus, A plus, B, B plus, your audit will occur yearly. If you score a C or a C plus, you'll have a re-audit in 6 months, and a D or D plus grade, you'll have a revisit within 28 calendar days and a re-audit within 6 months. So the revisit within 28 calendar days to confirm all your non-conformances and the closure of those. Non-conformities are rated as critical, major, minor. One or more critical, your certificate is not granted and the re-audit is required. So if you are certified already, your certificate will be suspended until those things can be rectified. And then a major, minor, all root cause CAPA is required within 28 days. A little about the certification. They have a specific scoring system, so certification is graded as AA, A, B, C, and D to ungraded. Certificate has a year's validity. Some of the other features and things about BRC is applicable to whatever company size. BRC is a very prescriptive standard, I would say, of the ones we're discussing today. It definitely lays out the rules exactly how they expect that to be achieved. All audits are entered into the BRC directory, so just like FSSC, BRC has their own directory as well, and it's a public directory, provides the same information on the certificate. So you'll be able to see the scope, the score, and the validity, so when your certificate expires. Certificate bodies delivering FSSC, so this should say BRC audit, needs to be accredited to ISO 17065. Auditor qualification includes the auditor profile is listed on the BRC directory. So if you go in, you can also see if your auditor is accredited, and it's approved by BRC before the auditors can undertake any audit. A little bit about IFS. So IFS is focused on food safety, quality requirements, compliance with customer specifications, as well as regulatory legal requirements. It's an annual certification audit required. Audit frequencies as they occur annually. Non-conformances, they have their own specific scoring system. So A, B, C, D, major non-conformance, and a KO non-conformity. Think of KO as critical. Corrections shall be provided within 4 weeks of all of those. So if you, no matter the rating of your NC or your audit, corrective actions has to be provided within 4 weeks for full closeout. Certification, the audit is translated into a level of compliance that respective figures percent, indicating the level of achievement. So there's a table, it scores how many you have of each kind, and it will give you your percent, and then that'll say whether you're scoring for the audit is foundation or a higher level. Certificate has a validity of 1 year. One major nonconformance and a total scoring of less than 75%, or several major and or several KO or critical nonconformity, no certificate will be issued. Some applicable benefits, applicable to whatever size of the business. IFS is a prescriptive standard, but not as much as BRC. They also have their own IFS database, which allows users to access all current information on the use of IFS certificates and IFS reports. All IFS certificates incorporate a QR code that allows verifying in a true and valid certificate. Certification bodies delivering IFS audits need to be ISO 17065 accredited. And then strict auditor qualification process, resume evaluations, and exams are conducted by IFS. And then lastly, SQF. So SQF focuses on food safety, customer, and regulatory requirements. However, they do have an additional quality module that you can add on, and that is optional. The certification process. So they recommend a pre-assessment gap analysis, kind of like a desk audit. It's optional, but recommended following an initial certification audit. Frequency, audits occur annually for recertification. You may have a biannual surveillance audit, may be required depending upon your score. One audit in a 3-year cycle will be unannounced. Nonconformities, so a critical requires an immediate fix, audit failure, re-audit required. Major minor requires root cause corrective actions, complete closeout within 30 days. For the certification, audit outcome is based on scoring. So audit ratings, it figures in how many critical major minors you have, and the audit ratings are E for excellent, G for good, C for complies, or F for fails. Certificate is valid for 1 year. Some of the optional features, it's applicable to whatever size company. SQF is pretty prescriptive. Audits are scheduled and reported in ReposiTrack. So that's the external database managed by SQF. Certification bodies delivering audits need to be ISO 17065 accredited. The auditor qualification process is done through Exemplar Global, so applicants must apply to this system. Once approved by SQF, auditors receive their certificate, which should be renewed every year, so you can ask your auditor for their certification. Poll question. Do you want me to skip that, Trudy, and come back, or?
No, we can go ahead and launch the poll. Okay. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, everyone, on your screen, you should see a poll. So why don't we go ahead and take a look? What standard from the Yum approved standards do you think will best fit your company? So we have the BRC GS Food Safety Standard, or BRC GS Start, the FSSC 22000 or FSSC Development Program, the IFS Food Standard or IFS Global Markets Food, or SQF Standard or SQF Fundamentals Program. Which of those would best fit your company? So if you take a moment and go ahead and put in your response, and then we'll take a look at our results. Okay, so let me go ahead and close that and share with you. There you go, Summer. There are the results if you'd like to take a look.
What standard from the Yum approved standards do you think will best fit your company? And it looks like the majority of you are looking at FSSC 22000, followed by BRC, SQF, and then IFS. And this just may be the group that we have on and what's most popular or commonly used in your area. So perfect.
Okay, I'm going to give it back to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So how does the certification audit to a GFSI benchmark standard work? So basically they're wanting, you to say what you're doing. They want you to do what you say and then prove it. So do those, just so the supplier do what they, or say what they do. So they want to review your supplier policies. The auditor ensures that the supplier is knowledgeable about the proper standards, rules of food safety management, all your documents, everything's in place and in control. And then they're going to observe and inspect. So do what you say. They observe and inspect the supplier while they're in the operation to ensure that you're following the safety protocols and guidelines and your procedures. This will usually include interviews with employees, inspecting the facilities, a complete walk around, things like that. And then does the supplier track what they do? So track effective implementation. So they're going to review your records. They're going to review your non-conformances. They're going to review your follow-up. They're going to review your meeting minutes, things like that, and check if you're really doing what you say to protect their consumers. Oop, it's not moving forward for me. Oh, I moved it too far. Sorry, guys. Hang on one second. Sorry about that. Trudy, it doesn't seem that I have control. All right, so we polled SQF, IFS, FSSC, and BRC and asked them for their top non-conformances that they see globally for last year. So some of the things that were reported back to us were sanitation, building equipment. So things to kind of watch out for where you guys are working on your program. So internally inside of that building and sanitation equipment, Some of the things they're seeing are incomplete master sanitation schedules, items missing off those sanitation schedules, so they're not even included, so they're not getting cleaned or documented they're cleaned. This will include the entire facility, inside, outside, floors, walls, ceilings, the whole gambit. This also includes a lot of times like your pre-operation checklist to make sure that the equipment is clean before you start up. Sometimes it's, you know, the buildup of the areas that don't get touched, or, you know, we didn't get the contractor in to clean the ceilings, or, you know, the racking, things like that. We'll see cobwebbing or dirt or, you know, build up depending upon the process. Physical product contamination, some of the things that were called out in the top NCs there were doors not sealing properly, so allowing pest entrance, glass bottle plastics program not properly implemented. So they have one and it doesn't include all the items, they're not doing the checks, something's broken and it's not reported, or there's not a follow-up to it, things like that. Temporary repairs. So those become physical product contamination issues if there's a temporary repair that becomes a permanent temporary repair. And then other things that we see for product contamination is how many, you know, NCs or how many rejects do you have from those metal detectors and stuff before you're investigating or shutting down that line and following those procedures. Allergen management was also a hot topic. So things like no verification of your allergen changeovers, no root cause corrective action from allergen complaints, labeling issues. So not verification of the labels, not make sure it's the right label on there, that you're putting the right product in that package, incomplete documentation verification, and then also things like storage in the warehouse, making sure you're not storing allergen items over non-allergen items. Facility maintenance in general. So your preventative maintenance program, your preventative maintenance records, the training of your maintenance team, just kind of the general facility, floors, walls, ceilings, things like that being degraded. And then the temporary repairs as well, and the program for handling and the priority of those for food safety. Management, leadership, and commitment. So some of the things that we see with that is that the management's not involved, they're not effectively trained, things like your management meetings, your monthly meetings, your HACCP meetings, things like that not being documented, all inputs not being considered into that food safety management system, and then the leadership not providing the proper resources or the properly trained people to correctly do that job. Some of the hot areas in storage include things like cobwebs, pests, birds, things like that. Your bags not being sealed and closed, racking not appropriate distance from walls and from other pallets to allow for proper cleaning, the way you're storing your materials, your non-GMOs, all your things like that out in the warehouse. Traceability, also not hot topic, unable to complete the trace activity, not meeting those timelines that your customers set, not having proper inventory, not having lot numbers and things like that. Calibration and verification of CCP controls. So some of those things will include your metal detectors, scales, x-rays, so the verification, calibration, making sure those calibration records are up to date, completion of those calibration records and verification that they are complete. NC management, so anytime that you do have a deviation, that you guys are completing a full root cause corrective action and that is documented and implemented. And then some of the last things we see is that non-conformance and corrective action management. So results of internal, external audits, that you guys are investigating, that you are escalating to the correct people and making sure that those are getting investigated and resolved and people retrained as needed, that you're using your customer complaints, that you're using those things to complete root cause corrective action investigations. A lot of times with non-conformance, yeah, this is what we said we're going to do, but then nobody goes back and verifies that action was actually appropriate. And then a lot of times you'll see some weak root cause or corrective actions that are, just kind of restating the finding, or that it's not a complete investigation. So those are just some of the kind of hot topics that we noticed that trended through the different information that we received from the different standards. So I am going to hand it back over to Mark to kind of talk to you guys about the process and becoming certified.
Thank you, Summer, and thank you, Samuel. Before talking about how LRQA can support you on your GFSI certification path and the timelines involved, we did want to ask one more poll question so we could best understand how to support you on your journey. So,
Okay.
moving.
All right, Mark, we'll go ahead and launch that poll. And the poll this time is, how would you rate the maturity of your existing food safety program? Is it fully aligned with GFSI standards and just not certified? Is it based on the principles of Codex and HACCP GMP and certified? Or is it based on the principles of Codex HACCP and GMP and not certified? Or based on customer requirements and independently certified? Or do you just not have a formal food safety program in place? So where would you rate your maturity of your existing food safety program? I see we've got our results coming in. I'll give a couple more seconds for you to make your selections. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share the results. Mark, if you'd want to go ahead and take it
Do you
from
want me
there.
to do that, Mark? Or?
Sure. It does look like very few have put that there's no formal food safety program in place, and we do appreciate the transparency here and the responses. It does help us in understanding how best to support you all on this journey. Speaking of how LRQA can support you all on this journey.
Okay, I'm going to give that back to you.
Thank you. What you can see here is the typical GFSI certification timeline. We've categorized this in 4 different buckets: the preparation stage, the audit stage, the report receiving stage, and then finally the certification stage. Now, as you saw from Summer's slides, there are several nuances that are specific to each of these standards. So we've done our best to generalize these and give you a better understanding of what that timeline looks like. The reality is there's no better time than now to start this journey. However, from a preparation perspective, it's going to depend on where you're at on the maturity phase. There is things that I will talk about, such as training, that can help you on your understanding of these standards, training for those that are on site. And of course, from your end, you will need to implement the procedures and record keeping systems. LRQA does offer a gap assessment. This does vary in duration, but typically around 2 days. Now, the gap assessments also typically occur 90 days prior to the start of the actual audit process. The gap assessment is more of a dress rehearsal. So it's almost like an audit without actual nonconformances being issued. The more time you have between that and the audit itself, the more time you have to prepare and make sure things are correct before the audits occur. Now, from an audit perspective, the durations are going to be based on the facility size, the number of employees, and HACCP plans. The durations will differ, as Summer mentioned, between the 4 different standards. And depending, some of them have a stage 1 as part of the initial certification process. This stage 1 is a desk audit, if applicable, and it's an information gathering and review. It's a documentation review to ensure all the necessary processes are in place for the certification audit. Now, typically it is 60 days prior to the stage 2 audit or the main audit, but can be as far as 6 months prior. The certification audit itself is a planned visit to evaluate the implementation of these processes and the effectiveness of your food safety plan. Once that audit has occurred, findings are provided to the site within 24 hours. A draft report is typically issued within 1 week of the audit, with the final report being issued around 35 days. Again, as there are nuances to the standard, this is just general. Once the report, you will get the finalized report once you resolve all the nonconformities, implement corrective actions, and the auditor will then recommend you for certification. Once you've been recommended for certification, it's typically 7 days before we can turn around that certificate, and you will have a certificate in hand. Depending on the standard you choose, you will either have a recertification on the annual standards or a surveillance audit for those that are triennial. LRQA also offers a client portal. It's easy to use, personalized, and available to you 24/7. You can log on there and look at planned activities, completed visits. You can confirm proposed visits. You could also reply to the status of audit findings. You could run analytics and look at the nonconformities in the visits. This is very helpful when there are multiple sites listed, when you have multiple sites that you sign over. You could also download certificates and reports anytime from anywhere, as long as you're able to access the internet. You could download approval marks, review your company profile, as well as contact LRQA client services with any requests you may have, or look at the status of those requests themselves. In addition to the audit, we do highly recommend that you check out a variety of the learnings that LRQA provides, whether that be classroom-based learnings that are specific to the standards, e-learnings. We do offer blended trainings, which is a combination of face-to-face and e-learning sessions, micro-learnings for quick, effective bursts of online refresher training, virtual learning, classroom sessions delivered online, live or pre-recorded. We also have visual facilitation through some of these virtual learnings, leading to very high client engagement. We also deliver in-house courses at your premises, should you be interested. We are also pleased to announce that all Yum suppliers will receive a 10% discount on all of LRQA's training services. And when you do contract with LRQA on a GFSI scheme, we will also include a complimentary Yum supplier e-learning bundle. Now, most of the standards do own the licensing to their trainings, so we are only able to offer this e-learning for FSSC, but we offer two e-learnings. One is for food manufacturers and one is for food packaging manufacturers. We are standard agnostic and would be worth you just going through the e-learning regardless of the standard you choose to move forward with. So through LRQA's strategic partnership with Yum, we ensure Yum and the suppliers receive maximum value for your business, whether that be through the full end-to-end supplier program support. Our experience in managing these supplier programs and maturity in this space helps ensure that we are sharing any updated information globally and can flag any external factors that have an impact on yours or Yum's goals. Our training and expertise allows for an innovative approach to ensuring you receive the most effective training and are prepared for the audits, whether that's e-learning, face-to-face training, virtual, or visually facilitated training sessions. You can trust that you'll be provided with the most impactful training for you and your business. There's also a value-added approach, whether it's through carefully thought out webinars such as this one, workshops, conferences. LRQA ensures that we're providing you all the maximum value as our unique selling point, because ultimately, that's what impacts you, the client, most. So to wrap this up, why partner with LRQA? Our strategic vision, effective partnership, technical expertise, global capability, and our fresh perspective puts us in the best position to support you on this journey. Should you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Summer or myself. You will receive a copy of this presentation. So lastly, LRQA has the expertise, experience, and credentials to ensure that we're supporting the suppliers and on your road to GFSI certification. I would like to mention, we are planning on an email going live next week, yum@lrqa.com, but in the meantime, feel free to reach out to Summer and myself directly. This will enable us to answer and be as responsive as possible wherever you are around the world. We thank you for your time today, and we'll open it up for questions.
Okay, Mark, Summer, and Samuel, I do have a few questions from the audience. First question, what would be the ideal time frame for us to get the certification process started?
I would suggest reaching out. I'll take this one. I would suggest reaching out to Summer and myself as soon as possible. I did share the timeline earlier, and the reality is for the audits to get started, we suggest 3 months prior at least. However, that does limit the flexibility in scheduling. The earlier you start the discussions with LRQA, the better understanding you have of the durations of the audits, what preparation may need to occur prior to the audits occurring, as well as you know, Yum has a large supplier base, and you want to have as much time as possible to ensure you're able to meet those goals of
Okay.
certification by 2025.
Okay, that sounds good. Another question, if I have any questions for Yum, who should I contact?
Yeah, I can take that one. So for all of our suppliers around the world, I'd recommend if you have a question for Yum, you reach out to your local Yum business unit brand QA manager. So you should be familiar with who they are. They'll be your local representatives for Yum, and they will be able to support you with any questions you have from Yum on our direction. And of course, the team at LRQA are really, really well engaged with Yum on this program, so they may also be able to help.
Okay, great. Another question, is it possible to integrate ISO 9001 and FSSC 22000 and maintain a single management system in a company?
I'll take that one. Yeah, it's definitely, we do a lot of the audits. They'll do FSSC and the ISO 9001 congruently when they do the audit process even. So yes, it's definitely possible.
So that's totally possible. Wonderful.
Yes.
Okay. So another question, are suppliers of a distribution center required to be GFSI certified as well, e.g. supplier of ketchup or packaging?
I can probably take this one. So the Yum requirement for certification applies to all suppliers. So those are suppliers of food, suppliers of distribution services, and suppliers of packaging. I would highly recommend, if you are one of those suppliers that you're unsure of either what requirements apply to you or what the time frame is that applies to you, I'd highly recommend you reach out to your local Yum QA contact, who will be able to support you in understanding how our strategy and how our requirements apply to you as a business.
Okay, thanks, Samuel. And then our FSSC 22000 audit and GFSI audits, are they separate?
So GFSI, it's not an audit. It's the governing body of those audits. So you would just have an FSSC audit. The standard which FSSC is built is based on what GFSI has structured framework for. So it's not in a GFSI, it's not, it's a type of audit. So SQF, BRC, FSSC are types of audits that allow you to meet that GFSI certification or that standard.
Okay, great. And then another question, what is the deadline to get certified by?
That is dependent upon your risk, correct, Samuel?
Yeah, I can take this one. So ultimately, for the vast majority of our suppliers, we will need you to be certified by the end of 2024, so that we start 2025 with a fully certified supply base. That said, in some extremely low food safety risk examples that I won't go through today, but we do have some extension to timeline for our very low risk suppliers. But again, I'd encourage you to reach out to your local Yum QA contact to confirm exactly what rule set applies to you. But for the vast majority of our suppliers, so for most of you on the call, we are talking about the end of 2024 for certification. And I just, to echo Mark's point around timeline, I'd highly encourage as many of you as possible to start your journey today. So get in touch with the team at LRQA and understand what your certification journey looks like. The amount of time you need will differ depending on how advanced your food safety management system is and how aligned you are to the scheme that you choose and their requirements. But certainly you want to make sure that you give yourselves enough time to be successful through this program. And the sooner you start that journey, the more likely you are to achieve the requirement before that deadline.
Okay, so don't delay. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. Another question. They said, good morning, and they want to know, is ISO 22000 in place? What is needed for me to get Yum certified, as we want to be able to supply to KFC?
Well, I think probably a combination of Summer and I for this one, but certainly if you're ISO 22000 certified, you would need to upgrade that to FSSC 22000. But Summer, perhaps you could talk a little bit about the differences between those two.
Yeah, so FSSC 22000 and ISO 22000, kind of go hand in hand. The majority of that standard is that ISO 22000. So if you're already ISO 22000, it's just a few extra pieces that are outlined in the standard to meet. So being ISO 22000, you've met 90% of the standard already.
Okay. All right.
Just to add to that, if you are currently ISO 22000, I would just say that essential guide that does come complimentary when you do contract with LRQA for GFSI does cover those differences between ISO 22000 and FSSC and would be very helpful for that specific scenario.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. And then our question next is, our company is strictly storage and distribution. Do you have training more focused on this area rather than manufacturing or packaging?
We would have, we don't have a specific storage and distribution training from an e-learning perspective, but we do have other solutions and services we can offer to provide you information and see how you must prepare from a storage and distribution perspective. Each scenario is different, so would highly suggest just reaching out to us, explaining the situation. We can provide you with support services and the way forward from there.
Okay. Another question, should distributors also be GFSI certified?
Yeah, I can take this one. So if you are the distributor currently providing Yum with the distribution service, then yes, this would apply to you, and you would need to go through one of the GFSI storage and distribution programs. And this would replace the Yum audit that you are currently receiving. So right now you'll be receiving the Yum storage and distribution program, which is our second party program, and we would be replacing that with the GFSI benchmark program.
Okay, and I'm not sure if this question is similar, but if we are not certified to GSFI yet, are we still required to be audited by Yum?
Yes, that is correct. So our program remains in place until you receive your certificate from your whichever GFSI scheme you end up partnering with. So that's another benefit, I guess, of moving quickly with this is the sooner you get certified, the sooner you can turn off your Yum audit.
Okay. And then are any certification audits announced?
Yes. So the ones that are like a 3-year cycle, two of the audits are announced, one is unannounced.
Okay, all right. So another question here, in smaller markets, many of these requirements require financial resources far greater than profitability of the product being supplied annually. Are concessions made in these instances?
So certainly the requirement for certification is there are no concessions in terms of that requirement. You would need to work with a business like LRQA to understand what the financial commitment is for you as a business in terms of getting certified. And also I would encourage you to think about perhaps depending on the scale of your business, whether one of the development program audits is more appropriate for you as you start on this journey. I would also recommend you think about the wider benefits that I talked about in my presentation. So sure, certification to one of these programs will help you in terms of Yum business, but also as you become globally recognized by one of the GFSI benchmark schemes, it gives you the capability of growing your broader business with other international customers like Yum. So sure, Yum are going on this journey, but we're absolutely not the only ones. Lots of businesses, whether it's Walmart, Subway, McDonald's, huge number of businesses are also accepting GFSI benchmark standards. And so by moving away from simply being Yum certified and being globally certified, you also grow the potential for your business to pick up new customers. So I'd encourage you to think about the investment in this program, of course, being part of your commitment to supply Yum, but also the opportunity to potentially grow your business beyond the Yum account that you have.
Okay, thank you. So it's worth investigating. So what certificate is needed for a crop supplier? So they're in agriculture.
So I think if you are a crop supplier supplying a further processor, then this would be slightly different. And again, in these scenarios, I'd really recommend you speak to your local Yum or brand QA contact. Yum, when we think about farming, we operate with GAP, so Good Agricultural Practices, whether that's Global GAP or one of the other GAP schemes for farming. The GFSI programs that we've talked about today are pretty predominantly focused on either the manufacture of food or packaging, or the distribution and storage and transportation of food and packaging. If you're growing crop, then I would recommend you reach out to your brand QA manager to understand the requirements that apply to you.
Okay. And our final question for today is, if we are not certified by the end of 2024, what will happen?
So again, I can take this one. So the Yum compliance requirements become effective from the 1st of January 2025, which means that at that point, if you are not certified, you would not be compliant to the Yum food safety requirements. That would then be down to the business units and brands to obviously manage that. Ultimately, our expectation is that suppliers are certified, and this forms part of Yum's food safety management program and the direction we're taking all suppliers in. So let's get to 2025, but certainly the only direction Yum are heading in is this GFSI benchmark program, and we are not going to be moving away from that direction. So my recommendation would be to all suppliers is start looking at this, understand what's possible, see what's practical for your business to achieve, and let's get to 2025 and reach that certified status that we're looking for.
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to say thank you to Summer, Mark, and Samuel. That's all the time we have today. And thank you all of you for attending our webinar. And for more information, please visit LRQA.com.
Thank you, everybody.